Am I attacking just Christian fundamentalism, or am I declaring war on Christianity itself? That's a valid question, and stay tuned and I will answer it. Recently, I had gotten a comment when I posted this video on the social media stating that I wasn't just attacking Christian fundamentalism, but Christianity in general. And I would have to say this would be a fair and legitimate comment, because when I go after an evangelist like William Lane Craig, a well-known Christian apologist, some of that response is going to overflow into general Christianity as well. It would be the equivalent of if I threw a large artillery strike upon the enemy soldiers and some innocent civilians happen to get hit by the shrapnel as well. It's fair, and I can understand why some of them would get annoyed, as they're sitting back saying, well, we never attacked you. Why are you attacking us? In which, unfortunately, I'm going to have to tell them, yes, you had better put on some body armor, because more shrapnel may come your way. But first, I'm going to explain that there are two types of Christians, and why I'm not going after the Christian himself, but specifically the fundamentalists. Now, the majority of Christians fall into the modern evolutions of the church. The Episcopalians, the Catholics, people who may show up to Mass even every Sunday, but largely their lives are not dominated by their religion. You would never know someone is an Episcopalian because they would not think it important enough to tell you, let alone try to convert you to their way of thinking. Most people will carry their religion passively because they have to carry something, or take that bold stance of an atheist and come to the conclusion that there is nothing after your last breath. So most of us do believe in that intelligent designer of some sort, and that hopefully he has granted a pleasant post-mortem existence for us as well. When I was in Catholic school, and my early Catholic school was a strict conservative one run by nuns, we did have one 50-minute session a day dedicated to religion, specifically Catholicism. And yes, the characters of Adam and Eve, Abraham, Moses, the ancient Israelite flight from Egypt, the Great Flood, and all traditional Old Testament biblical stories were taught. In the early years, they didn't really say that the Catholic Church largely recognized the Old Testament as largely symbolic today, because one, a 6-year-old's not going to understand the meaning of symbolic, and two, I think they wanted to plant the early seeds in our minds, as all parochial schools do, that God is all-powerful, so that we will accept the later New Testament when the teachings of the Gospels enter our class, which is already accomplished by the time we've completed the rite of our first communion in 2nd grade. And then later, as the children start asking questions about Adam and Eve, as in normal Christian homes, it's usually the parents who have already relayed that the story of Genesis is fictional. The nuns and teachers will concur by stating that the Old Testament was largely symbolic. And that would be the major difference between the fundamentalist and what I call the normal Christian. Because when the child of a fundamentalist school comes home, most parents will largely reiterate that we did come from Adam and Eve, there was a talking snake, the Great Flood happened, and Noah lived to be over 900 years old. So usually in my videos when I go about debunking the Old Testament, it's very easy to distinguish that I am talking to the fundamentalists and not the normal Christian. The fundamentalists get their feelings hurt, and they're the only ones. But then it will be said that I'm going after the New Testament, therefore attacking all of Christianity. What I'm actually going after here are the evangelists who attempt to state that they have irrefutable evidence that clearly shows that the New Testament is completely legitimate, particularly when they say they have irrefutable evidence that Christ rose from the dead. Because if you look at the backgrounds of the Christian apologists that I'm going after, you will find that they're fundamentalists. Lee Strobel is an evangelist, and the vast majority of his interviewees in his work, The Case for Christ, are also evangelists, or closely associated with. And my attacks on them will, by axiom, attack the New Testament. For when an apologist states an untruth, whether it's an historical untruth, or using a rogue scientist who's been discredited by mainstream science to prove his case, he should be questioned. And that's what these fundamentalist Christian apologists do. As I said in a previous video, they use speculation instead of evidence. And that also includes historical speculation. So for instance, let's take an Old Testament example. The Christian fundamentalist apologist states that we have scientific evidence that the Genesis flood occurred. Then they point to John Baumgartner, who is a legitimate geophysicist, who came up with a rogue hypothesis about continental drift in which the continents moved during the Great Flood through a process which he calls runaway subduction at a speed that would have allowed the continents to move across the earth in 40 days, thus solving the problem of all the species of animals being in one place on one supercontinent right before the flood began. And I can debunk that with the fact of the easy proof that the heat produced, even by Dr. Baumgartner's own estimates, would literally cause the oceans to boil, thus negating his own hypothesis. And the regular Christian's not going to get upset with that video, because it's clearly the fundamentalist that's being attacked. But then you take a New Testament example, like explaining the controversy of the word virgin in Isaiah 7:14, in which Isaiah predicted the Emmanuel to come through a virgin birth, and Dr. Craig using evidence in Matthew 1:23, or what he claims is evidence, to confirm that the prophecy in 7:14 Isaiah was indeed fulfilled. And then I simply say the same thing any atheist would say, and that's that Matthew 1:23 was written 50 to 100 years after the fact, and we don't know who wrote it. And I'm sorry to upset the regular Christian, but until we uncover something that tells us otherwise, that is the fact now. And the point here is that I'm not proving that it didn't happen. I'm simply pointing out that Dr. Craig is orchestrating evidence that he claims is valid for a virgin birth that simply isn't valid. Or when the Christian fundamentalist apologist tells me that we have evidence of Christ's resurrection because he appeared to 500 people after his death. I can't prove that that didn't happen, but I can prove, as of now, until we uncover something else, that we have no record of those 500 people with any sort of writing or signature during the time it happened. Not one person who was an apostle or disciple who wrote down claiming to have witnessed this miracle and then signed his name to it. I'm not proving that it didn't happen. I'm simply showing that the Christian apologist is speaking an untruth when he claims he has evidence that it did. And as I've said in another video, the most honest answer from anyone who has any religious belief system is to not try to prove it at all, because you simply can't. If I were to condemn the average Christian for believing in a higher power, I would therefore have to condemn myself because I'm an unspecified theist. It's just that my belief in a higher power varies slightly from theirs. My attack isn't on Christianity. My attack is on the evangelists and other fundamentalists that attempt to prove it, attempt to use those pseudo-proofs to intrude in the public school system, politics, and every personal relationship that they're involved in. So Christians, don't think I'm persecuting you because you have a belief system, for I have mine as well. But fundamentalists, I will continue to persecute you on this platform, for you are not only not engaging in objective research, you are using your incorrect assumptions to try to force your worldview on others. But if you'd like to read something that I admit is fiction, check out my novel, The Second Fall, a tale of an offbeat apocalypse that's irreverent enough to offend the fundamentalist. On Amazon, see the link in the video description as well as the banner, and I will see you next time as we once again take the sword of reason and reality and thrust it right through the heart of ignorance.